I'm George Bailey. I'm the president of the Darnell W. and Susan F. Boyd Foundation. The Darnell W. and Susan F. Boyd Foundation was created by Donnie Boyd. And the reason he created it was because he didn't know what he wanted to do with his estate. So he decided he was going to create a foundation, and that would be where his assets would go, and he wouldn't have to worry about it anymore. So Susan agreed to add assets to the foundation at her death, and so it became the Darnell W. and Susan F. Boyd Foundation. Our mission really has been to do things that are good for Columbia. We're focused on outdoor activities. We're focused on improving the quality of life in Columbia. But the bigger picture is give back to the community that gave so much to him. Boyd Plaza was created in 1998 with a donation from Donnie Boyd in honor of his son, Darnell Boyd Jr., who was killed in an accident. We began to look at the plaza some 20 years later, and it was very run down. A lot of the facilities needed to be replaced. We decided that if it was going to have the Boyd name on it, we wanted it to be something that our community could be proud of and we could be proud of. So we undertook a complete overhaul in 2014, which at that time was our largest project, $4.2 million. I come to the plaza frequently and enjoy seeing people from all walks of life enjoy the space, and also very appreciative of the way the people treat the space. It's very heartening to see that other people respect the space and treat it nicely. Well, we're very pleased to have been involved with the renovation of Boyd Plaza, and we're so very happy to see how well it's been received by the community. Again, it's back to our mission of making Columbia a better place to live, and as it turns out, this has really been a key element in accomplishing that goal.
You're listening to Binder. I'm Drew Barron. Hey y'all, welcome back to the Binder Podcast. Producer Drew here, filling in for Ray. Couldn't make it this week because of a couple of scheduling snafus, but he'll be back soon. And in the meantime, I'm afraid you're going to have to deal with me. But, I'm not here alone. I've brought a friend. Some astute listeners may remember her actually hosting this show once before. But it's so great to have Dana Witkoski back on the podcast. Dana, can you tell the listeners at home a little bit about who you are and what you do here at the museum?
Sure. Well, as Drew said, my name is Dana Witkoski, and I'm the engagement manager here at the CMA. The majority of my work centers around content development for workshops, classes, summer camp, some one-off programming like drag bingo, which is always a lot of fun, and also some health and wellness initiatives that we've been taking on.
Yeah, and I thought this would be a really great time to bring you on because we were talking today about kind of community programs, especially on the plaza. For those who don't know, we received a grant this year from the Knight Foundation through way of the Central Carolina Community Foundation, who is helping us do a lot of programming for the public on the plaza free of charge. A lot of these are health and wellness, which is one of Dana's specialties here at the museum. But Dana is the type of person who she has a really good eye for talent. She's bringing in instructors from all over the place to teach all kinds of classes and workshops. Where are you finding these people, Dana? Are you just like going off the street and picking them up off there? Where are they coming from?
Sometimes, actually, yeah. They come to me several ways. Sometimes they reach out directly, which is great. So if you're listening at home and you are a teacher of visual arts or, any kind of arts teacher, please reach out. I would love to hear from you. Other times it happens a little more organically. I might be out in the community or at a program, just talking with an artist who also happens to teach, and that's really exciting. Other times, they might be in the class. For instance, I have a yoga instructor who was in one of our yoga sessions, and then she came to me afterwards and, said, I'm a certified yoga instructor and I would love to teach. And so, we formed this great relationship, and now she's teaching with us, and I think that's super cool. We're so lucky. We have so many, universities and colleges nearby, and a lot of these teachers are actually in school to teach. And so, having students kind of dip their toes in the water of teaching by teaching here is a really great opportunity. It's almost like a professional development for them, but I also get a new instructor and create a new relationship or partnership, and I think that's really exciting.
Yeah. So a lot of these programs that we're going to be talking about today and that you've been involved with lately have been outside, and we're in the middle of fake fall right now. It's beautiful out there for a few more days before it gets hot again. But it's we're getting closer to that perfect season here in Columbia to be outside. And we have a lot of stuff happening. Are you excited to finally be on the cusp of fall, Dana?
I'm so excited. Even though I didn't sound very excited just then. No, I'm very excited. I feel like Columbia is just so amazing in the fall. And I know everybody's very excited about football season. But we have so many other things happening here in the fall. A lot of festivals. The weather is just awesome, Yeah. But then we have all of this great programming that we've been able to do. I think our October calendar, we have something every day that month. Sometimes 2 times a day we've got programs. But, we're just really excited to be able to take advantage of, such a beautiful space during one of the most beautiful times of year.
So, with a lot of these plaza programs that we've been doing, like I said, a lot of them are outside. We've had a lot of yoga and Tai Chi, some plein air drawing sessions. I know that you don't always get to attend these programs, but you're on the surrounding areas on the outside. Have you noticed any good feedback from any of the visitors or the instructors? What have you been hearing?
I think the best feedback that I've gotten hasn't been officially a survey feedback, but something that I've noticed we started this in April, is seeing visitors who had never been to the museum before become regulars. And it's oh, that's so cool to see someone who has never been here at all, but now I'm seeing them, on a weekly basis. I know their names. I know their pets' names. Just building that relationship is really cool. I mean, to me, that's the best kind of feedback, is just seeing it in action. And I think that's really special.
Yeah. I mean, I think we look at things like our health and wellness programs. Maybe at first you look at that and you go, wow, that's sort of a weird fit for an art museum. But I think that it makes a lot of sense in that we're always trying to find new avenues and ways to get people to engage with art. And for a lot of people, it might be their very first time in an art museum, right? But with that in mind, can you talk to me about some of these health and wellness programs and kind of how they started and sort of why you think they are a good fit, in a museum setting?
Sure. Let's see. We've been doing yoga in the galleries for several years now. And I think, that's an obvious fit with the art because it's yoga in the galleries. So you're literally connected to the artwork by way of space. But, there's, what is that statistic? A person only looks at an artwork for 30 seconds. Or
it's 17, and you can actually listen to the very last episode of Binder Podcast to hear more about that.
Oh, wow. Okay. I need to do my homework. But you just, proved my point that we don't take a lot of time to look at this artwork. So, by having these classes in the galleries, you're kind of, not forcing them to, but, it's very intentional about letting people really absorb the artwork and kind of take it in a different way. And the same's with the plaza. We have a lot of sculptures out there that I don't know if folks might pay attention to if they're just walking down Main Street. But if you have a 7 a.m. yoga class and, you're doing a downward dog and you look up and there's this sculpture. So it's like what you said, different avenues to take in art. And I think that's really special and cool.
Yeah, and I think, when you talk about things like yoga or Tai Chi or something like that, I think something that really does reflect well to sort of, I guess you might almost say the artist way, right, is this intentionality behind a lot of the movement. I think that parallel to me is really interesting because I hear a lot of studio artists when I interview them, especially abstract artists, they're always talking about intentionality behind the brushstroke, right? And doing something like yoga is really about intentional movement. And much like starting painting for the first time, starting yoga for the first time may seem really intimidating, but really the key is to just get in there and do it. And so I think it's awesome that we're providing people an avenue and an opportunity to do something new, to try something different. and really like extend themselves and stretch themselves. No pun intended.
Yeah. You beat me.
Did I steal your joke?
No.
But yeah, I think that is something that's like really special and something that, I have to give you a lot of credit to continuing to find like new, interesting ways to bring sort of a creative lifestyle to the people here in town. And I also think there's something about community with that, right? It's not just learning a new skill, but it's learning a new skill with others.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
Can you what do you think about that? What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I love that because, when you have this community and coming to, like art classes or a yoga class at the museum, you're connecting with others and you might go in a stranger, but you might leave with a friend. And I've noticed that over the years where, sometimes folks sign up for a class and it's just them, but by the end of it, they've made a friend and then those two folks are taking a class together. So there is really this very social kind of fabric of the museum experience because museums are just inherently social organizations. Like as I said earlier, you could come alone, but you're still going to have this engagement. It might be with a gallery attendant or someone at the welcome desk who gives you your sticker, or you might talk about your experience with your family when you get home. So there's always going to be this kind of social connection that's tied in with everything that we do here, I think.
And you really get the most out of it when you do like engage in that way, when you can have conversations with people about the piece that you're seeing, or, what you just learned in this class or something like that. So like, I love the way you phrased that. I think it was really awesome. So, we're spending a lot of time talking about health and wellness programs, but, that's not all we're offering here. We do have some more like kind of traditional arts related programs. I know one that you have an involvement with that's out on the plaza right now. And I mentioned it earlier, but the plein air drawing course that you're doing with About Face. For those who don't know, plein air means painting outside, drawing outside. And that's what we're doing with this program with About Face that you're kind of helping coordinate. Have you ever tried plein air yourself?
I have.
Tell me about that.
Yeah, I just remember it was very, very hot, but there's some, but
really selling it.
Yeah,
right
yeah. It's really nice. You're outside and it could be, quiet or loud depending. Of course, we're on Main Street, so you do get that buzzing of the traffic and a lot of people walking by. But you're also connected to nature. So it's this very interesting sort of shift in, you're in an urban setting, but you're also in a landscape of sorts on the plaza. We have a lot of plants out there. But it's very nice. It's really soothing. Something about being outside is just a very relaxing experience for a lot of people. So for Plaza Plein Air, it's 9 a.m. to 12 p.m., so it's kind of earlier in the morning, but we provide all the supplies so you can just drop in, stay for 10 minutes or stay for the full 3 hours. But yeah, as you mentioned earlier, Drew, we've been working with About Face, which is a longstanding partner of the museum, and they're a figure and portrait drawing group in town. They're a great community of artists. So if you're also looking to connect with other artists in town, this is a great opportunity to do that.
And even if you never have, that's really the beauty of all these programs. You could have never picked up a pencil in your life. And you can come out there, and not only are we going to provide the materials to allow you to do this, but we're also going to provide a community that's going to, help you along the way. You're not by yourself. You're not out there trying it for the first time alone. And ultimately, the end product doesn't really matter, right? It's like more just like going out there and doing it and like, rewiring your brain to try something new. We do the same things every day. I get up every day and I drink my coffee and I get in my car and I go to work. And like, you have to break that routine up.
Well, you can. I've always emphasized with our classes and our hands-on programs, for me, it's more about the process rather than the product. Obviously, we want you to come up with something if you're taking one of our art classes. But for me, the success is really in how enjoyable the experience was and what that takeaway is for our guests. And so I think with these plaza programs, just being able to experience the process of, a plein air drawing session on a Tuesday morning and, maybe the next Wednesday you come to do a yoga class or, I think Thursdays in October we have a lunchtime folk series. So we have a lot going on. There's definitely something for everybody, but it really is just about that, experience and life's experiences.
Hello, I am Jemia Williams. I am Columbia, South Carolina's official host of the Silent Book Club.
Jemia, it's great to have you on the show. Thank you so much for coming in today.
I appreciate that. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah. So you run the book club.
I do.
Reading's having a bit of a comeback nowadays. I mean, I remember it wasn't that long ago that every article was about how the art of reading is dead and how bookstores are going out of business and how everyone's just staring at their phone all day. And I feel like maybe they jumped the gun on that a little bit because it feels as though it's having a major resurgence nowadays. What do you think's causing that? Why do you think people are opening up the book again and flipping through the pages?
So I think it's a lot of different things on why reading is, and I don't want to say making a comeback, but I think it's more visible.
Yeah.
I think it's way more visible than what it is. One, I think it was a digital overload. I think folks were so connected. Social media and the internet just blasted out at us so fast. We just, as humans, got overloaded with so much digital information that folks just wanted to retreat back to something as simple as turning pages. I also think, very real thing, stay-at-home orders really kind of settled people back into things that they, refound joy of reading, getting back to things like that. I think also we were all zoomed out because we were having the Zoom parties and mixers and gatherings, right, with folks. And then after a while, we're staring at these screens I need to do something else with my time. Social media had a big impact. So it's kind of like a double-edged sword. I'm saying it was this digital detox, but then things around Book Talk was one of the very first things that kind of came around. Bookstagram was kind of there a little bit, but Book Talk really kind of made reading look exciting and fun. And even, it sounds very weird, but aesthetically pleasing. The internet, as you know, there's so many areas of it, but a lot of it is visuals and the books looking good and the capturing of the covers and the colors and the storytelling that readers were sharing. I think that really had a big impact on folks just sharing their joy of reading again. And then the diverse voices that we have, there's so many other stories that are being told through books and through fiction books now that I think that's really opening folks up to say, okay, I can see there's stories about me. There's stories that relate to my family or my upbringing or what's happening in my life right now. And I would say as someone that's been a very avid reader, that's something that I've noticed a lot more in ththese last few years.
Have you always been an avid reader or is this something you picked up later?
I grew up in the library. So behind the scenes, fun fact, I am kind of an avid bachelorette watcher. And me and my husband did hometowns before we got engaged. And one of the spots I took him on for our hometowns is the library in my hometown in Baltimore, Maryland. And I walked him to the library from my house. And I was it brought back so many memories. But my parents took me to story time as a kid. And we would spend Saturday mornings in the library. And then that just kind of kept with me throughout life. And I feel like anyone that's a reader goes through their ups and downs. And I, went through that. Funny story, in high school, I had to make a choice between a bed frame and a bookcase. And I chose to make it work. I had no bed frame. I had mattresses on the floor, smashed up against my bookcase, so I could literally grab a book in the middle of the night and read it because the bed frame and the bookcase would not fit in my room in high school. So it's I've had this joy of reading, just being lost in stories and just lost in other worlds that just really has just kept with me.
And then when you're done with the books, you can put them under the bed, and then that's how you left it
Make my own frame.
Yeah. Best of both worlds.
I know.
What are your go-to genres? When you're cracking open a book, what do you like to read?
So if I would have answered this question about a year ago, I probably would have said psychological thrillers, mysteries, suspense. But even thanks to things like Silent Book Club and just even getting immersed in the book communities on social media, I've discovered so many other genres that I just love now. Historical fiction, literary fiction. I love reading all stories from Black authors, queer authors. I really enjoy just getting a different experience than my life just typically has. So that is really what I have been immersed in. But then when I need a pick-me-up or something that okay, I'm in a funk a little bit, I'll throw a little thriller in there just to get my blood pumping again before I go on to something else. I love a thriller. You cannot go wrong with a whodunit. You can never go wrong with a whodunit.
That's true. A good whodunit. I'm a big fan of the how catch 'em, you know, when you know, and it's all about trying to figure out how the characters will figure out what's about to happen. It's one of my favorite genres as well. So when you hear book club, right, I think a lot of people kind of have this old school sort of mentality of, okay, like it's going to be a reading assignment. We're all going to sit down, read the same book, and then have to answer questions about it. But that's not what Silent Book Club is.
No.
And it's not totally silent, I think, is also maybe something that might confuse people. Can you explain to me, like, what a Silent Book Club is and sort of, if no one's ever been to one before, what they could expect if they wanted to join one?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great question. But one thing that I also have to always clarify is that I don't own Silent Book Club. A lot of folks are unfamiliar with Silent Book Club, and it is a national brand, has over 1,000 chapters across the world. And it is like super, like extremely fast growing right now, especially I think with the resurgence, like as we talked about, of just folks really sharing the joy of reading. But Silent Book Club, as I say, is a BYOB, bring your own book. And you can grab a spot, grab a cozy corner. And if you don't want to talk to anybody, you don't have to talk to anybody. If you want to mingle and create community and ask folks, you know, what they're reading, you also have that option too as well. It's really set up to where you can pick and choose how you want this to roll. It's a 2-hour time block for the most part, right? 30 minutes before, come in, grab a seat, depending on where we're at. You know, you might be able to grab a beverage, some snacks, find your spot. I'm very particular on there. I have a triangle bell. I come around and I ding that triangle bell to let people know, like, hey, it's time to start silent reading. And then we silent read for 60 minutes. Do that 1 hour of silent reading. And then afterwards, that last 30 minutes, you can mingle if you would like with folks, or you can keep reading, right? We have folks who just will keep reading until they decide that they want to go. And I think it makes it like also less pressure to, even if you're someone that's not super either extroverted or you really being in social settings maybe isn't like your thing, there's always something to talk about. Like there's always something to talk about. I can just walk up to you and I say, oh, well, what are you reading? Tell me about that book. And then when you do that, it just makes folks want to be social. It makes them want to tell you about this book, especially if it's a genre you have no idea about. They want to explain everything. And that's another reason why I found so many genres that I'm very interested in reading about now.
Yeah, and I think that's a really important point is that I think reading often is a very siloed, solitary sort of activity. But there's something to be said about reading in a communal setting, right?
Yeah.
Even if you aren't reading the same thing, right? Because you're kind of around other people that share your interests. And that's really important. And I think especially as like we, you know, as we grow older, what a cliche thing to say.
I'm young forever.
Yeah. I'm probably the old one in the room right now. But, you know.
You never know.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to assume that's a yes.
That's fine. Assume. Assume.
I always just assume that. But, you know, I think as you age, it actually does become a little bit more difficult to find these like moments of community.
It does.
And so things like this really give people that opportunity. Do you get anything out of you know, reading in that communal setting that maybe you don't get when you're just cracking open a book, sitting on the couch?
I really do. So I work from home, and I have a toddler, and I have a toddler that actually has some special needs, and so it could be sometimes being at home can be very exhausting, and it can be a little bit challenging. And my husband and I, we moved here from Northern Virginia. And so I didn't know anybody, right? I didn't know anyone, and I didn't know how to get connected, you know, into the Columbia community. I knew he was working at the University of South Carolina, and I knew that we would form some connections that way. But I also wanted to figure out how I can make my own community, right? How I can do that. And then I ended up discovering that the friends that I ended up making loved reading. So me and my girlfriend actually would do our own. We didn't even know we were doing Silent Book Club, but we would meet up and we'd say, hey, we're going to set our phone timer. We're going to read for 30 minutes and then we're going to chat. Then maybe if we have time, we'll do another cycle. And that's literally what we would do. We would sit together and we would read. And I found so much joy in just getting out of the house and sitting just next to someone silently reading their own book. And then us just maybe not even chatting about the book afterwards, but just like talking and catching up. But we inserted in something into our usual thing, something that we both enjoy doing. But sometimes it's even hard to find time to like read.
Yeah. I love that it came about in such an organic way.
Such an organic way.
Whereas, like, you know, a lot of times we bring in partners for these sorts of things. It's a very structured, especially with something like this where it is like there are national chapters.
Yeah.
But this really just came out of your own personal passion and wanting to build your own community.
And even a step further, we were actually, because we host typically at the Graduate Hotel, and me and my girlfriend would just meet up there because they have delicious food, and, it was great. And so I said, you all used to have a book club here. And they were like, oh, yeah, we need a new host. And I said, well, I'll do it. And they were like, okay, cool. And next thing you know, I was connected to someone. And 30 days later, we had our first resurgence of the Silent Book Club here. So it's been really cool.
See, you mentioned that you usually do this at the Graduate. So how did you get linked up with the museum? Because, I guess on paper, the museum maybe isn't the most obvious space compared to, say, All Good Books or the library. Mm-hmm. So, how did that partnership kind of come about? And what's it been like hosting it here?
So second to libraries, I love the museums. I also grew up in museums. My husband and I, we got married in a museum. I hosted my husband's birthday party, a milestone birthday party here at the museum, the Columbia Art Museum. So for me, it was always there's a joy and it's art. Reading is art. Literature is art. And I think some people don't sometimes make those connections. They just think museum. They just think imagery and maybe visual imagery and motion pictures and movement and things like that. But words are art just as much as they are with images. And so I knew once I got the Silent Book Club going on, and we were already avid museum goers, we were already members, we see all the exhibits. One of the first places we visited when we moved here, and that was, safely open during the pandemic, was the art museum was here. And we saw the Black is Beautiful exhibit. And I said, I'm going to love living here because this town with so much rich history and sometimes some unfortunate history that happening is celebrating my community and celebrating my people like this during a very, very challenging time. I was like, I'm going to love it here. And I just knew, I was like, we got to do something at the art museum. And I was really going small. Maybe we can sit outside in Boyd Plaza and read. But I am just so thankful for the community and staff here at the art museum that allowed me to come into their space and really make it my own. And I think it even gives another just vantage point and experience for our Silent Book Club folks, because some folks will just hang out come to the Graduate. And then when they come to the art museum, oh my gosh, I was expecting kind of the same, but it gives me a whole different experience coming to the art museum. And I just asked, I literally, some people think oh, how did she come and make this partnership with the museum? This seems like a really big thing. I literally just asked someone that I knew, and here we are.
Yeah, I think there's often this misconception that the museum is this unapproachable place. Yeah, but I think what people need to remember is that museums are run by people that have the same interests as everyone else, that want to be as a part of this community just like everyone else, And oftentimes all it takes is a conversation to get the ball rolling on something like this. We're very excited to have this program here, and it's been really successful. People really seem to have gravitated towards it, which is really exciting for us. And I wanted to kind of double back to something you said a moment ago about literature being an art form. There's a reason we call it the literary arts, right? Yes. And that's something we've always been a big proponent of here at the museum. Usually on this podcast, you would hear from Ray McManus, who's a poet here in town. He's oftentimes the host, and he's been a writer in residence here for a few years. And so we've often embraced the literary art form as being a valid and important portion of the arts. We're the Columbia Museum of Art. That doesn't necessarily just mean studio art.
Right? Exactly.
I think that is the role of art museums. We're really trying to broaden the scope of what maybe people think an art museum should be. And it's not, I'm not going to claim that it's just the Columbia Museum of Art doing this. A lot of art museums around the country are really taking this into consideration and really looking at the past, 50 to 100 years and looking at some of these art forms that maybe didn't get their due at other points in time and really reevaluating that.
I completely agree. And I think book club fits right into that because it gives folks and even gives people I so many folks hey, is this your first time at the art museum? And some people will say yes. And I want to be wow, you have such an amazing place in the middle of Main Street that, is here for you. But it also warms my heart because now when folks come to book club, they get to visit the museum, which gives them a piece of taking a piece of art, even just home in their minds, their body, their heart, their soul, their energy. And I love that. And it's exposure for some folks that just have never been here before. And there's other little nooks and knacks in the museum that and events that folks do that they find out about when they come to book club. That's another reason why I love hosting here.
You know, and you hit the nail on the head. This is exactly why we do these things, right? It's like we want to invite people in, and everyone's going to have a different avenue that gets them here, you know? But I think once people actually step foot inside and see what's available here, they get excited, you know? And like, it may be that they just want to be more involved with more of our literary events, and that's great, you know? Or maybe they find something else that they didn't even know that they could fall in love with. I mean, this whole episode is really around this idea of community and around this idea of community events and how, you know, we all get attracted to different things, but that like the beauty of a place like this is that we can really embrace a lot of different avenues and really bring in these folks and give them a chance to see that art museums have more to offer than just the paintings on the wall. Those are great too.
Those are great. Yeah, those are great. But come read a book with us. Come hang out, grab a coffee, come read a book with us, sit down, settle. I always set the vibe up really well. Like I bring my speaker and I play like 70s, 80s, like old school jams, like Teddy Pendergrass and Aretha Franklin. That's what I listen to, right? And get to settle myself into reading, and then I'd switch over. Like the last book club, I was playing Miles Davis. That's art too. Like that's art. You know, that's art. I was playing Miles Davis as we were reading, and even just setting that vibe. And you can just see folks, and they're just like their eyes aren't closed, but like they're reading, and they're just like you can see the little bit of the swaying, and them really enjoying just the feeling because it feels warm. It feels like a hug. When you're reading side by side, silent with folks, like it just feels like you're in a space that is safe and comforting and warm, and you're around like-minded people and folks that really enjoy the joy of reading just as much as you do. Because I mean, it's an intentional. Like folks are like, "Hey, I'm coming to this," right? You have to RSVP, right, to show up. So folks are making the initiative to come, and I want to create that experience for them to where they want to come back and they want to be a part of the museum and they want to share what they're reading with others and they want to meet other folks. I want them to want to meet up with some folks on their own and read outside on a nice day in Columbia and silent read with others. Like that's what I want, like Silent Book Club and this book club to really just kind of, you know, flourish into.
Yeah. So I'm a big nerd. You can visually see this, and the people at home can't. But so one of my
You look great.
Oh, come on now. You say that until I say what I'm about to say. So one of my favorite books of all time is very nerdy, but I love The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I grew up on that. And so for you listeners at home, if you're nerdy like me, I definitely recommend checking that out. But I wanted to know what kind of recommendations you have for our listeners as someone who reads a whole lot. So I'm sure you have quite a few. So what you got?
I do. I'm going to stay on theme here. So Anita de Monte Laughs Last by Xochitl Gonzalez. It is an art history book, and it's a celebration of two artists, one who was forgotten for various reasons, which you'll have to read in the book. But it's such a great book. Multiple viewpoints set in like the late 80s, 90s, which I'm a nostalgia buff. So like I'm very big on books that are set in that time frame. So I look, because it also removes all the like the other things, the connections and the gadgets that we have now. And you really have to concentrate on two people getting to know each other. I absolutely love that book. The Love Songs by W.E.B. Du Bois by Honoré Jeffers. It's a thick one now. She's very thick. Like I'm talking almost 900 pages. Woo! She's a big one. But, oh my God, such a beautiful story. Heavy, very heavy. But it's such a beautiful story just about Black people and Native Americans and how we got here. And I felt like an honor reading that book, like really, really, really great. And then one that caught me by surprise called The Cartographers, about people who make maps. And that's by Peng Shepherd. And I was reading that book late night, breastfeeding my son. And I, a couple years ago, and I was immersed in the act of how these maps were magical worlds and how you would look between how parts on the map were missing, but you would go to that location and you would find something magical. It was just like, those three books have like really stuck with me. And those are ones that I really tell people and recommend. One of my all-time favorites though, Life of Pi. And I think it was when I read the book before I saw the movie, and I had no idea that I was reading about a tiger and no idea Richard Parker was a tiger, because the way the author just wrote that book, it's a book that I've actually passed along to friends. and they pass it back to me, and I read at different stages in my life, and it's just really good read.
Jemia Williams is the organizer of the Columbia chapter of the Silent Book Club. She hosts the club at the local hotel, The Graduate, right here at the Columbia Museum of Art. If you'd like to learn more about upcoming Silent Book Club events, visit her website, columbiamuseum.org. After the break,
the reason I think the shop works for us and why we enjoy it being the community space that we feel like it's become is because we love providing space for people to be happy.
Greg Slattery of Curiosity Coffee. Right after this. Hey y'all, producer Drew here with a quick question. Are you a CMA member? Relax, it's fine. I can't hear your answer anyway. But if you are, I just wanted to say thanks. And if you're not, maybe stick around for a second before you hit skip forward on your podcast app. CMA memberships put art to work for your community, connecting visitors from all walks of life with unforgettable creative experiences. Your support helps make art accessible, helping the museum keep community benefits like free admission days available to the public each month. It helps support our public programming, including this podcast, and allows us to continue to bring you new and exciting art exhibitions every year. Of course, you get plenty of perks too, including priority registration for events, special discounts on classes, camps, and merchandise, and admission not only to the CMA, but over 150 Southeastern museums. At the CMA, inspiration is around every corner, and it's all thanks to you. Fuel creativity and South Carolina with a CMA membership. Now, thank you. And back to the show.
The way people enjoy coffee is different around the world, right? What's funny is, we try to travel to origin and meet with exporters and producers and get a feel for the coffees that we're bringing in. And through that, obviously, when you're there, you want to drink coffee. And what we've learned, or at least me in particular, because I hadn't traveled internationally until it was for this sort of thing, that a lot of people don't drink coffee like we drink coffee. It's more social. So, you can't get a cup of coffee at 6 a.m. Nobody is open. A lot of places didn't open until 8 or 9, maybe 10. The culture there is people go to work, and then 30 minutes in or so, everyone kind of just goes and grabs a cup of coffee together at the local shop, and then they go back to work. And it's just sort of a social, people drink coffee throughout the day, and it's very laid back and relaxed. And that's more of how I've done it. I just never used it to, stay up all night to, study for an exam. I never, chugged a bunch of coffee to, shake a hangover or something like that. It's just, it's always just been I just kind of drink coffee throughout the day. But man, I wake up early because my rhythm is being up early. So even though I don't need it, I really want a cup, sounds like an addict, right? I really want.
His eyes are also bloodshot. No one else can see that but me.
I don't have to have this coffee, but I would really like this coffee before 8 a.m., please. My name is Greg Slattery, and I am one of the co-owners of Curiosity Coffee Bar in downtown Columbia, South Carolina.
Hey, welcome back. It is early in the morning, which is rare for us. We usually always record in the afternoon, but it does seem appropriate because I'm sitting here with a Greg Slattery of Curiosity Coffee, coffee being my favorite morning drink. I'm drinking it right now. Greg, what do you have in the morning?
Well, right now I'm drinking a cold brew, which is pretty much what I drink every day. I love hot coffee, but I'm just no cream, no sugar, just black coffee, whether it's hot or cold. Yeah, so I'm drinking our nitro cold brew. It actually came from one of our cans.
Yeah, y'all partner with a bunch of different groups to kind of bring coffee in. Who's your main roaster?
So we have been working with 1,000 Faces Coffee in Athens, Georgia, since we opened, which was April 17th, 2017. So my partner, life partner, business partner, Sandra Moscato, when we first started dating, she loved coffee. I did not. I didn't drink coffee until I was in my 20s. So when I was here and she was visiting me, because she lived in Rhode Island at the time when I met her, and she wanted to go get coffee, I took her to the A1 corner store near my house to get a cup of coffee, and she looked at me and was like, absolutely not. So we were visiting Athens, and I saw that they had this coffee cupping, is what they called it, at 1,000 Faces Coffee. And I was like, oh, I should take her there.
Yeah.
So if you don't know, a cupping, you can't add cream and sugar in a cupping. Like you're taking a spoon and like, it's like, you know, when you go to like one of those really fancy wine tastings where people are like doing that weird slurping and stuff, you know? Same thing, but for coffee.
This is great tape, by the way.
And so we get in there and look at the setup. I mean, it's like a table of just cups of things. And I'm just like, well, I guess I got to do this. Because I just wanted to impress Sandra. I didn't really care to personally drink any of this coffee. And I figured I could at least add some sugar or something. And I'll never forget, it was a Nicaraguan coffee from Finca Idealista, which is a farm run by this guy, Ben Weiner, who we've met since. And I took a sip. It was amazing. I mean, and I've been drinking black coffee ever since.
That's awesome. You know, I never realized, I've you know, for listeners at home who don't know me, which is most of you, I've actually known Greg for a long time. I met him before he ever started Curiosity. We just have run in the same circles for many years, and I always just kind of assumed you were a big coffee drinker. I didn't know that it was like so like kind of tangentially important to you and Sandra's relationship. I think that makes it amazing that y'all kind of went into business together later that way.
Yeah.
So the business is called Curiosity.
Yeah.
Which sparks my curiosity. Where did the name come from?
You know, it's funny because Sandra and I were talking about it, and it's something that we had workshopped a bunch of names. And as someone like, I came from being in bands and music, and like come up with band names is always like a fun but challenging objective. Like it could be cheesy, it could be silly. And it's interesting how much goes into a name.
Yeah.
As we started talking about different names, Curiosity was something that seemed to really like ring true with all of the things that we wanted from the business. Like, you know, doing things a little bit differently. And, you know, we've always wanted to have a more eclectic, open, accessible, community-based shop. Like, you know, at the end of the day, we are selling coffee and we are selling baked goods and sandwiches and things like that. But what we want the most from it is to have people interact with each other, to promote an idea and a sense of community. And to me, that is about staying curious. Like, so it kind of worked in that sense. But I'm also a big believer in, you know, things got to sound good. There's got to be so Curiosity Coffee, it's not quite an alliteration, but that it rolls off the tongue.
Yeah. A little while ago, you mentioned that, you kind of came out of the music scene here in Columbia. You played in bands. You were involved with Slattery, which was our kind of regional music magazine out there for a while. And you and Sandra both were always just kind of like really strong, like organizers and kind of advocates for like the local scene. Like, where does that come from? Like, where does that like love of like kind of like lifting up the local start?
That's a great question. You know, for me, I can say that I've been playing music since 8th grade with like people, you know, it was like one of those like, so the band that I was in for a long time, Shallow Palace, we all got instruments in 8th grade, and it was Christmas of that year that Michael got his drum kit, and we just started, all right, now we're a band. We're like official. And so, you know, the goal was like, I want to tour the world, be in a band. And my approach to it was, I'm going to do everything I can to make this happen. So through that, it was booking tours, organizing shows. And for me, the easiest way for me to get a show in another town was to hook them up with the show in our town. And so eventually it started building into this scenario where I began to understand how much I enjoyed working with people. So events are like sort of another arm of that. And I think it's where I really learned that, like, I love playing music, but there was just something beautiful about the harmony of finding the right grouping of artists, whether it was musicians or, throwing in some comedians or adding, we did a show at Art Bar where we had people getting haircuts in one room and, trying to find different ways to just bring art and culture to people. I mean, it was, and it's just something that I've personally been affected so positively by the community of musicians and artists. I went to the Fine Arts Center in Greenville.
Yeah.
We had guitarists and musicians that were recording stuff we were putting in videos that we were shooting. And I think learning there, I've always been chasing those feelings.
Yeah.
And not chasing, I shouldn't say, because I think that, it's something that I have in my life. But it's what's always made me want to be a part of the community. And I love Columbia. I think there's such an opportunity to be a part of a community here in a way that I personally feel like I could never find in a city the size of, say, Chicago or New York. Especially when I was playing out a lot and touring, the idea of living in Brooklyn was so appealing to me. To where now I feel like I'm in a city that appreciates art. I mean, the Museum of Art has incredible programming, and across the street is one of the most innovative libraries in America.
Yeah.
And having that along with, a size of a city that, you don't get lost. I feel like I see the benefit of going out and running into people I know. It's about, the experience of life and enjoying life, and for me, I find that to be much more of a reality in an area and a place where I feel like I can be an artist in whatever way I deem that as art and enjoy it and be able to afford to also live,
Yeah, which is very important when you're an artist.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think, this is a big reason why we brought you on the show today was because, we're talking about Community Day, specifically about community in terms of their relationship with our city park right out the door, Boyd Plaza. But, it really extends to that greater kind of community of Columbia and why it's so important to foster that and embrace that and create these new connections. And I think I appreciate the fact that you've always just kind of done it because you really want to see happy people. You want to see people enjoy themselves and enjoy the things that you're putting together. So one of the things that you have been putting together is a partnership you've been doing here with the museum. Conveniently, as I mentioned earlier, that we're recording this in the morning because I think one of the really unique things about this program, which is called Morning Blend, which is a great name, by the way. I don't know who came up with that, but it's brilliant. But one of the awesome things about this program that makes it really unique is that it is a morning outdoor concert series.
Yes.
So talk to me about Morning Blend. How did this come together? I know you worked with Wilson on this.
Yeah, so I've known Wilson a long time. And so he and I have gone back and forth over the years on different things at the museum, arts and drafts, things like that, where he might have hey, do you know of a great DJ or a band or some ideas for these different things? And I've always been able to sort of throw some things his way as these would be some cool ideas for some artists for this, that, and the other. So he also comes through the coffee shop and I see him here and there in the mornings. And so we were talking about some concepts. And for me, my thought was, what if you could go to work and have already seen a show? You catch a show in the morning, you grab your cup of coffee, you get a biscuit from Drake's Duck Inn, who did their pop-up for that, the most recent version that we did of this series. And you get all of that in, and then you go to work.
Yeah.
And when we were talking about it, I was like, look, I've never seen somebody do this. So there may be a reason why people don't do concerts at 7:30 in the morning, because we did 7:30 to 10:30. And it's funny because I'm such a morning person. I've always been a morning person, even without coffee. I've always been up early. So I love to see things happening, because usually come 7:30, I've been awake for a couple of hours at least. But it turned out really well. In general, I'm sure with that grant, nationwide is a lot about lunch. And it makes sense. You're already at work. It's an easy thing, not easy, but the idea and the concept of bringing in food trucks or something along those lines to sort of ease the middle of the workday makes complete sense. My thought was this would just be something different, like a different way to use that sort of money to support local artists and to provide something that I thought would be interesting if you were pulling up and you're walking into work and you're like, am I hearing a live jazz band? Am I late? Or like, what day is this? And I love that sort of like bewilderment that you can create just through like throwing off the timing of something. It is, even, talking with the jazz artists, because my thought too is like, okay, let's be smart about this too. Let's not do metal at 7:30.
Right.
As intriguing as that might be, jazz is something that is often very instrumental, which is, makes it a little easier for it to be heard and absorbed, like for blocks where it's, it seems like a good thing to like ease your day in with jazz. And it went really well. We really enjoyed it. We're doing it again in October, the first 4 Wednesdays in October. And Nick Vlandis, who played organ and keys a lot in the previous series with the band leader, Kyle Bryant. But Nick is band leader for this one, and he's got some cool themes coming up. One I'm really excited to see. He's doing TV themes one week, and I think that's going to be really fun.
That's amazing.
Because I like to imagine the effect and like how things will, sort of be absorbed. Because there's so many great places that could go. I don't know the selection, how far back any of this will go or the specifics, but conceptually, I love it.
That's so great. One of the things that really stands out to me about this program is honestly, it kind of goes back to your statement there a minute ago about just sort of the subversion of expectation. When I saw we were going to do a morning concert series, I'm not going to lie to you, Greg, I was very skeptical. I was like, who's coming out for that? It's early in the morning. Like, I am like sort of a morning person, but I'm not really like conscious in the morning. It's really a miracle that we're doing this right now. But the crowd was like really engaged and really big. And like, I was blown away. Like, I would have never expected there to be that many morning people in this town. But like,
the thing that I didn't expect to see that actually worked really well was the sort of covered areas with the seating.
Yeah.
People were just working outside, listening to the band, coming up, grab a coffee and some food. People were holding meetings. And once again, the reason I thought jazz would be a good, either just the way to do it or at least the great like first test run.
Yeah.
Is that it is great. Like, you have jazz going in the background. That's like perfect for a meeting. Like, wow, how did you set up this private jazz band for our...
unless it's like hard bop or free jazz, it's pretty inobtrusive, right?
Yeah.
But I think it worked exactly as you planned it to, which, big ups to you on that. Because like that... It's kind of like a risky take, I think to your point, a lot of people would have just gone for the afternoon, but also going for that morning, it really leans into, we're curiosity, we're a coffee bar.
Yeah, yes.
I really love the program, and I'm excited to see it come back because it actually has, been a nice start to my day, those Wednesday mornings coming out there. Well, y'all, this has been Greg Slattery. If you want to see Greg, I suggest meeting him before 10 a.m. because he's full of energy right now. And go
turn
by
into
the
a
shop.
Pumpkin at noon, not midnight.
That's right.
I'm the opposite of Cinderella.
Greg Slattery is a community organizer and the co-owner of Curiosity Coffee Bar, located in Columbia's North Main District. you'd like to learn more, you can visit their website, curiositycoffeebar.com, or come visit them at the Plaza when Morning Blend returns this October. Hey y'all, thanks for hanging out with us today on the Binder Podcast. I wanted to take a second to thank our creative partners. People like Jemia and Greg, but also so many other artists, instructors, and creative thinkers that work alongside our engagement team to help bring you unique programming every month, whether it be on the Plaza or in the studios and galleries here at the CMA. I'd also like to thank the Boyd Foundation for their continued support, and our grantors at the Knight Foundation and the Central Carolina Community Foundation for supporting all the access programs we've been talking about today. If the conversations you've been hearing today have left you inspired to get out of your comfort zone and try something new, check out our website to see all the programs and classes happening this fall at the museum. Just a little housekeeping here at the end. Ray's going to be back real soon. Also, we'll have a new episode of the More Than Rhythm podcast coming out later this month, and even more from the Unsettled podcast real soon. Thanks for listening, y'all. I really appreciate it. Till next time. You've been listening to Binder, a production of the Columbia Museum of Art. Today's episode was produced, edited, and hosted by me, Drew Barron. Special assistance from Joelle Ryan Cook. If you'd like to learn more about CMA exhibitions and programs, you can visit our website, columbiamuseum.org.